Hello, my darlings. Well, you might know by now how much I love this author, Berkeley Breathed, and you probably know that I like the color red. So I couldn't resist. I almost didn't read this because I think it's going to take me like 3 episodes or so. But I think it's worth it because I love the way this writer writes. The words he uses, the way he puts, he's so imaginative. Plus, look at these amazing illustrations. Oh my gosh, so good. So the name of this is Red Ranger Came Calling. Look at that little boy. And I'm going to read for a while. And then, and look at how cool the inside. It's a Red Ranger goose stepping along, like marching. Red Ranger came calling. Look at the great illustrations. Oh my goodness. This is a wintertime story. So even in the summer, this will warm you up. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, Christmas, 1939. During the Depression years, before the Second War, my folks would banish me from East Orange, New Jersey to Michigan for the school year and then ship me to upstate New York for summer camp. The lone remaining month for Christmas would find me on a train to my Aunt Vi's house on Vashon, a damp little island somewhere off the country's upper left-hand corner. It was an out-of-the-way corner, but a good place to grow things, where strawberries and sour-faced little boys might ripen up sweeter. Or so my mother told me each time she sent me away. But on Christmas Eve of 1939, I'd grown no sweeter at all. My prize eluded me. An official buck tweed 2-speed Crime Stopper Star Hopper bicycle. It sat there gleaming in the Vashon hardware store window, tantalizing earthlings with its spine-tingling glamour. The Red Ranger of Mars, me, him, visited this place daily, like a cow returning to a salt lick. There I would loiter, miserable in bicycle poverty, kept company by Amelia, Aunt Vi's Dalmatian wiener dog mix. Most of the time, Amelia just snoozed nearby, dreaming, like me, of other places and other lives far away. But it was 1939, and although Christmas Eve had arrived, dreams were unaffordable. Amelia and I headed home with mine far behind in a store window. And here's a picture of him dreaming of that wonderful bicycle. But it was Christmas Eve, and he knew that wasn't going to happen. As usual, I looked for delays on the walk home. Aunt Vi would be waiting, and we made each other equally uncomfortable. So I saw no reason to hurry. That evening's detour brought me and Amelia past the ramshackle lighthouse perched high in the mist on Point Robinson. As always, we paused to consider the old house's legend. Island old-timers insisted that its unseen occupant, old Sander Claus, was actually Santa Claus himself. The real McCoy of childish fancy migrated down from the north to spend his final days in secretive retirement on Vashon Island. It took folks far more fruity than the Red Ranger of Mars to be tricked into believing such twaddle. Like many my age, I knew that Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny were just that many more promises hatched by those who weren't very good at keeping any. As we turned to leave, an astonishingly squat little man, no bigger than me, rushed past us toward the old lighthouse. He carried an overnight carpet bag which bumped along behind him. The tiny man smiled weakly and tipped his hat, revealing pointy ears. something flowery needed to be said by the Red Ranger of Mars, but in my shock, all that came out was, "Mister, you look like a turnip." I could not recall ever actually seeing a genuine elf, nor calling one a vegetable, but I was certain that I just had an elf. You know whose elf. To a dyed-in-the-wool everything doubter such as myself, it was mind-boggling. And there's the little elf. And there's he was astonished to see him. That evening, Aunt Vi asked me to help pin up some old holiday magazine pictures, but I declined, as my mind had been freshly boggled. Vi noticed my peculiar mood and offered to let me open my Christmas gift from her early. It was a glorious buck tweed space uniform, the bonus highlight being a large red R zooming across the breastplate. I tried it on, and she flung a hand across her brow, swooning from the swashbuckling drama of it all. We had finally discovered our first bit of common ground. But my Space Ranger senses detected that the jersey was in truth last year's cast-off pajama top, dyed Ranger red, and altered by the loving hands of its giver. Pajamas, I said with crushing disappointment. I didn't speak again, but my fingers explored the familiar cloth, and my expression hid none of my defeat. Vi turned away, hiding her own. I did not typically give much thought to the feelings of others, and, true to form, I did not that night. My mother used to tell me that there was a natural order to all things and that mine must have been prickliness. She said that blaming me or anybody else for my distant nature would be like blaming a polar bear for eating Canadians. It was the natural order, and that was that. I thought of this as I went up to bed. So here he is discovering it's really pajamas dyed red. And there's his aunt realizing, it didn't work out that well. Aww, and he went up to bed, and it's Christmas Eve. As I lay there in the dark, my thoughts returned to the earlier elf sighting. He had looked like the real thing. And elves to Santa Claus are like horseflies to a horse. One means that the other is nearby. For a child, even me, it was all too tempting to believe. But then wasn't everything and everybody? It occurred to me that a kid's life was one long opportunity for having the rug pulled out from below him at every step. Myself, I was determined to stay on my feet. Still, a fraud was surely afoot, and it was the sworn duty of the Red Ranger of Mars to stick his nose deep into such things. Amelia followed, looking doubtful, as I dropped out my window. I bent low and then crept off into the island fog to unmask a humbug. The Sonder Close house teetered high above the pounding surf, the moon igniting the rising mist into blue phosphorescence. Ancient toys in disrepair littered the steps like ghosts from a baby's bad dream. We clambered past an old sign nailed into the rocks. Visitors, here's what the sign said, visitors not received with zesty jolliness at the moment. Let's revisit that. Visitors not received with zesty jolliness at the moment. I almost turned back right there. I was growing uneasy about the whole matter, and a public guarantee of grumpiness didn't help. I knocked on the huge door unzestfully. And that is the door. And Saunders Close had already said he didn't want visitors. So let's stop now. I'm not sure how many episodes of this, but it's so good. I'm going to stop this with the first episode, and click the second episode now. I